Welcome to In Early, the crypto podcast, where I speak to those at the forefront of the digital asset space, telling real-life stories, discussing the growth and growing pains of the industry, and exploring how blockchain technology has made an impact on people's lives. My name is Matt Green, and I'm the blockchain litigation lead at Shoesmiths. This week I speak to Korby Hayre, the founder of House of Block, a boutique event agency designed to cater for Web3, blockchain and crypto. A veteran event organizer, we speak about Korby's journey in the space, some of the events she's worked on, including the recent digital asset and Web3 garden party at Hurlingham, and how to engage sponsors and delegates in the blockchain space. Korby, welcome.
Hi, Matt. Good to see you.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah, really well, thanks.
Thanks for coming down.
Gosh, I'm very busy, but it's great to be here.
Well, I mean, we've known each other for a few years now. We've hosted a joint Christmas event, House of Block, with Corporate Comics. Definitely shout out to Ali Datu. And my feeling is House of Block was set up to organise genuine networking events, to provide real value, to enable people to collaborate, find funds and projects to invest in, and generally meet decent, like-minded people in the space. Is that how you would describe House of Block in a nutshell?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to think of when I first set it up on an A3 sheet of blotting paper. Yeah. And I think the date's still on there, sort of February 2019. And I had all these wonderful ideas. I sort of put it in the middle as a mind map, and I had podcasts, like we're here today, conferences, cocktail parties, soirees, supper clubs, all this information. Then obviously as you move through the sort of the business curve and life matters like the lockdown, that sort of changed my vision of what I was doing. So the live events, everything just went on hold. And I sort of revisited it when we came out of lockdown. So yes, but and essentially that's what it is. It's a networking events business.
Would it have started earlier then had lockdown not have happened?
Definitely. I would have launched it in 2019.
2019?
Yeah.
Well, how did we get there? Because 2019 sort of seems like a while ago, but it's not like, I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't seem that long ago now. I mean, we talk about the lockdown like it's the past tense. So I've been in events, since I left university, so pretty much 25 years. I shouldn't say that on camera, really. That's giving away my age. But I've been in events all that time, and I've worked across a multitude of different categories.
Yeah.
Business to business, business to consumer. And I was in the tech sector for about 10 years, working on Cisco Live. I also worked for Symantec, which is the Norton antivirus. And I just got to dragged into this world of tech, emerging tech. And I just found all the people that I met were quite effervescent, cutting edge. And that's how I got into the tech space.
Well, let's sort of draw back a little bit and consider your personal journey, right? Because your background prior to fintech, blockchain, Web3, however you want to sort of describe it. I understand that you worked in the BBC in the 90s, helping what I think is probably fair to say some household names. Top Gear Live, the classic sports car Live.
Yes.
Gardener's World Live, obviously a lot of live stuff.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that period of your life and the skills you learned there.
Sure. I was quite young. I was sort of like early 20s, pretty much out of university. I did a year or two in a publishing house, and I went into trade events and then consumer events. They were actually the best years of my life looking back.
Yeah.
Made some great friends. They were really high energy projects. And I rose from sort of sales commercial manager right the way up through to event director, managing quite large teams. Looking back, I don't know how I did it because now I manage a much smaller team, which is what I prefer now. But they were live events, so they were essentially a carbon copy of what we were doing on screen at a venue. So things like NEC was used for Gardener's World Live. And I worked for my managing director at the time as sort of Peter Osborne, and he was a fantastic maverick, really great coach. He was the kind of boss that banged the table, but, he got results. And we worked in unison, and we all had this one vision, one goal, and we used to achieve it in an amazing short amount of time, I have to say. So, yeah, they were good fun events. And I think my favourite was actually BBC Good Home Show, which was the interior show where I worked with the whole cast of the TV, like Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen.
All the characters.
Lawrence Llewellyn-Bowen, the very flamboyant, who I call LLB, and Handy Andy and Linda Barker were the main names at the time, and they were just a good sort of creative crowd who helped develop the show as we were building. So I suppose looking back, my skill set was always working with clients to get the best out of the event. And that's what we achieved.
So you've always, to some extent, been involved in events, and obviously we've done stuff together, and it all starts from that, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
And then you moved to partnerships. You mentioned Cisco. At one point, you worked for the Sunday Times newspaper. How did sort of all of that translate into where we are now, which is blockchain, Web3?
I think all of those environments give you a sort of strong work ethic, very professional work ethic as well.
Yeah.
Working for organisations like that, brands like that, where integrity is paramount, and working in trusted relationships with trusted clients. And I suppose that's really what's sort of brought me now into this space as well. The blockchain move is quite a funny one, actually, quite an interesting one. I was working on Internet of Things space for a couple of years. And, you know, technologists are always looking at the next tech, like we are now with AI and what have you, frontier technology. And we were talking a lot about IoT and blockchain intersection and AI intersection, and all these words were being bandied around. And I flew out to Malta to do a recce on the AIBC Malta show.
What's the AIBC Malta show, just for those who don't know?
Artificial Intelligence and Blockchain event organised by Sigma, by a very charismatic chap called Iman Poulis.
Okay.
So I went along to have a look at the event, to sort of do a report back for the UK office I was working for, because they had the whole model wrong. And I came back, I did a report, and I said, look, you know, you can't put a blockchain event in a huge exhibition centre like Excel, because it's such a nascent industry, right? It was like 2017. People want conversations, they want connections, and I think you've got the model wrong. Anyway, that didn't go down too well.
Yeah, there's a good way to make friends there. Tell them what they're doing wrong.
But the thing was, you know, I was still with the company, but I was so passionate about blockchain and where it was going, and blockchain for good. And that's kind of links up with the sort of transparency and integrity comment earlier about working with known brands like Reed, Exhibitions and BBC. And that's how I got into it. So I sort of started at the enterprise angle, looking at supply chains, tracking and tracing product, seeing the similarities and how that linked in with IoT, the Internet of Things technology. And I could see how the two were coming together. And I just remember thinking, God, this is an absolute game changer. And in the event space, there's not much going on. And
well, you're organising, I suppose, events, but it's about different things each time. But again, I suppose it's sort of, it's just organising events. So it doesn't change day to day. Did you find that things changed quite significantly?
Very quickly. And also I found the people that I met were so dynamic. And I just love the energy of the...
Right, so it's more about the kind of people.
Yes, of the community. So I love the energy of the blockchain community, whether that was on the crypto side. And at the time, I think we were coming out of crypto winter when there were quite a few scams. So everyone was really sort of trying to meet face to face and get to know one another.
Do you find that this industry has a certain type of person, or do you think that type of person has changed back since 2017 to now?
I think the profile of the person keeps changing, actually. And in fact, now that we're in the sort of Web3 era, what we're calling, I find us a lot more inclusive. I come from the shark's den, the media industry. We're pretty cutthroat. You've got an event, you've got a competitor doing the same. You've got to get that sponsor, you've got to get that media partnership ahead of them. Whereas what I find with blockchain, because it is a new industry, people are quite keen to work together, and it's a bit like Lego pieces. They're sort of putting their structures together, which I find fantastic. Yeah,
there's a lot of that in my view. I mean, there's lots of lawyers who work in this space, and actually, instead of sort of going, what's our competitor doing and how do we better them? It's like, well, maybe we can all learn from each other.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot more collaboration than I think people are used to.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree. I think even with the event organisers, there's a lot more collaboration. For example, House of Block, I am I hold networking events, but clearly my pedigree is large trade events and conferences. So I'm putting that skill to use as well in helping other event organisers with their schedules.
Well, that's exactly my next question. I mean, House of Block, to my mind, is to some extent is an agency specialising in Web3 crypto blockchain events, right?
Yeah.
And you've organised, or at least helped to organise, some of the major crypto events the last few years. You organised Crypto AM as the summit director. You were involved in the Blockchain Expo. Can you tell me a little bit about some of these events, what you've found fun?
Sure. Well, I think it started when I did the Blockchain Technology World strategy paper. That's when I really got under the hood of what blockchain was about.
What does that mean? The paper.
The paper. I wrote a paper for the...
Wrote a paper.
Wrote a paper.
Nice.
For the company that I was working for at the time, and they were a media company, just examining the marketplace and saying, this is a competitive landscape globally, Malta, the US. That gave me quite a good understanding as to what was under the hood, who the main people were, who the main players were, the protocols, the language, and there's a hell of a lot to learn on the language.
Yeah.
I spent hours falling asleep to podcasts. And in fact, I've made friends through it as well, Do
you think people will be falling asleep to this one?
No, I hope not. So Johnny Fry, I remember the first time about 5 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe even 7 years ago, I was at the ironing board, very,
good time to listen to.
And I had a podcast on, and I heard Johnny Fry. And I thought, oh my God, I've met that name. I'm sure I've met him at a conference, and I nearly burnt the shirt, which was quite a laugh. So I think, being plugged in to some of these people is fantastic.
Yeah, well, I've reached out to Johnny. I think we were supposed to record a little while ago. We've rearranged, but he's going to be a great person to speak to because he's been doing this for a while.
He has. Him, James Bowater, these are all what I'd call, sort of godfathers of the industry. They've been around a while. They saw it first. So it's, it's good to have them in your network.
And speaking of James, what was being the summit director at Crypto AM like? What's that involved?
It was fun. I came on board to do the whole project, but as time moved on quite quickly, we gathered so much moss. We sort of grew the speakers from 40 to about 120.
There was a lot.
There was a lot of speakers. I really just focused in the end on the content of the conference. Because I'm a little bit of a current affairs nerd, I kind of like that side of the job, and less of the running around, which I tend to do less of now. I have people in my ecosystem and some staff that do that for me. So I'm more interested in, the conversation.
It was interesting with that event because there was a lot of people doing talking and listening, but then the real meat of it, to my mind, was the black tie event at the end. That was great, and there was an award ceremony. I wonder whether sort of doing awards like that validates people's efforts throughout the year and is part of a draw.
Yeah, absolutely huge, and a lot of recognition to a lot of good names. And James does that each year. And I think also, for me trying to find a foothold in the market, the last thing I wanted to do was launch yet another conference.
So many conferences of the same. I was talking about it with some colleagues today, and it's just a matter of, you have a crypto conference. What is it? It's people sort of talking, speculating about what might be. And then everybody leaves and just congratulates themselves. Like, we've got to find a way to add value via conference.
Exactly. And I mean, there's a crypto event or a blockchain event or a Web3, however you want to use the term, pretty much every day of the week, globally, around the world. So for me, it was, how can I do something different? And actually looking at my skill set as well, not just repeating what I've done for 25 years for large organisers and, sort of conference producers, but actually looking at what value could I bring that would be quite quick. So I have a community. I have a House of Block community, which I launched 2 years ago when we were all trying to understand what an NFT does. And each week as a new acronym comes on, we throw it in the group and, a lot of people discuss that. And consulting with the group since January, actually, of this year, what can I do? And, I've been right round the block. I've looked at supper club venues. I've looked at, shishi venues like Soho House, and how about doing this? How about doing that? And in the end, I was having a coffee at the Hurlingham with a friend of mine, and I thought, crikey, I haven't been here since my classic and sports car days. And it's just one of these palatial outdoor venues that just completely ground you. And so I thought, that's it. And that was why I put my stake in the ground with the Hurlingham event, June the 23rd. Because I thought, if I can just get all the people, like we're here in the city, out of the city, down to the suburbs, southwest London, just to sort of, meander, talk, and really keep that conversation going. Yeah,
well, I know that it's a lot of people who are in your black book of contacts, right? And that's the value add. It's knowing the right.
Yeah, and they're not all in my network community. I have a lot on LinkedIn. I mean, having worked in tech across AI, IoT, and now blockchain, which is moving into Web3, metaverse, and everything else, there's quite a large group of people. I think we're always 2 connections removed or something.
What, in the world?
Yes.
Yeah, 6 or something.
6 in the world, 6 degrees globally, but 2 connections removed from...
Sounds about right.
Yeah, I know, it does sound about right.
So in your view, what kind of people are blockchain and Web3 people? Or I suppose to rephrase that, what traits do participants in this space have? Because I guess what you're doing is you're looking to try and draw these kinds of people in when you're doing these events, to host conversations, to create a feel. What are those traits?
I would say as an industry, we're quite maverick, quite entrepreneurial, because obviously it's new tech, a lot of startup culture, a lot of new businesses coming to the table. I think we've got some real good leaders in the space as well, some real captains of industry, some good industry leaders who are actually pulling up the younger guys and the younger girls, and I think that's fantastic. I'd say that's the biggest trait, and they're community builders. They don't work in isolation. And again, I like that aspect of this industry as well.
Because when I was in this space a few years ago, it seemed as though there were a lot of like entrepreneurial guys and girls, right? And they were trying to find a way to make it big. And it seems as though those types of characters were doing a great job, but actually some of the projects weren't getting financing, or they were falling away a little bit. And now, because there are sort of bigger players involved, those sort of entrepreneurial folk and the more established guys sort of mingling, and there's getting, I suppose, some more momentum.
Yeah, and I think it's, it is the future of money. There's no getting away from that. And I think as the industry matures, we are, globally, cryptocurrency is a global asset. It doesn't belong to any one country or any one person. And I think the thing is, there's so many people that are fascinated and interested in this way of, decentralized finance that it's just too big to shut down.
So what challenges are there when you organise events like this? Maybe challenges that you don't find when you're back in the day when you're dealing with, car shows.
I think one of the challenges is actually when you look at the calendar events, and I have a huge one on my Google spreadsheet at home, is actually finding a gap where because really at the end of the day, it's not only as courtesy to other event organisers, which I would say most of them are my friends, it's also courtesy to the delegate, because there's only so many events you can go to. So you're looking at the right time and the right place. So there's quite a lot that goes into the mix. So for example, with the Hurlingham event, when I looked at that venue, I thought, 2024. And I sort of walked away, and they called me up 2 days later, and they said, we've actually got a cancellation on the 23rd of June. Do you want to take it? And I thought, no, that's too close to quite a lot of activity happening in June. Glastonbury, Ascot.
Yeah.
James got his Crypto AM event. There's stuff going on in Non-Fungible Conference in Lisbon. And I just thought, no. And then I thought, no, I have to do it. So I
just jump on it.
Yeah, just jump on it. Yeah, exactly. So, 150 odd people together in a room. It's just building something, and we'll see where it goes.
And what surprised you the most in a positive way when you do these sort of things?
How supportive the community can be, and how they are looking for increasingly more opportunities where they can make those connections or take that engagement that they already have to a slightly deeper level. And I think, there's a lot of kindred spirit, and I love going to the events because there's always, a handful of people that I know. And I think that does build up trust. We get to know one another's businesses a little bit more. I know you and I have done it. Oh, I know so-and-so, let me intro you. And I think that's really a good spirit to have. There
is definitely more collaboration than maybe anticipated at the start. I mean, there's always, to my mind, if someone wants to be introduced to someone, there's always someone.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, Carmel at Grant Thornton. I met her through you.
Yeah.
And when we worked together last Christmas, she'd been a fabulous advocate of the space that we're in.
Yeah. I mean, it's about finding the right people. How do you go around finding them? I mean, from my experience, years, I was trying to find a really good investigator to do a lot of the assistance with cases. And you just end up kissing quite a lot of frogs, and they sort of let you down, and I'm in a much better position.
Sure.
For you, it's more of a people service, right? It's about finding the right people. How do you find those right people?
Well, I think now they tend to come to me.
Okay.
Which is good. I wouldn't have said that 6 months ago. I think I can say that hand on heart, certainly in the last couple of months. And they come to me through the good connections that I already have, going back to that Two Removed. I find people saying, hey, can I introduce so-and-so to the group? And I think that keeps the quality of the group high. And actually, if by some chance the link's been shared or it's got out in the wrong direction, the group will certainly let you know whether that person's got the right persona. So we're quite good at sussing out scammers as well. Not had many. I've had 2 people in my group which got sort of dissolved quite quickly.
What happened?
Well, I got alerted by about 6 people in my community saying this particular person is not credible.
Brilliant.
And so for that reason, you might want to consider. And you know, I don't, you know, they're moderators really, and that's why you have them. So we thought about it, had a discussion, and then they, you know, we actually just sort of took them off the group.
Yeah.
And you have to be aware of that in business, and I think more so in a new industry where it's growing quite quickly, and there are a lot of opportunists, you know. So you have to be a bit of a gatekeeper.
Well, I think what's really difficult, I mean, again, as lawyers, we have this. You put an event on, right? And then if you do it with, I don't know, let's just say an accountancy firm, for example. As lawyers, we'll want to invite loads of accountants, and then the sponsor will blacklist them all. And then eventually you've sort of whittled down your guest list to people who, I suppose, you know, you may get 20% of the people you actually wanted.
Yes.
You end up sort of conflicting your way out.
Yeah.
Is that something that you have to deal with?
Well, I think eventually, I mean, I think you do in the early days. I think certainly at the beginning when I was new in the space, 2017, 2018, there was a lot of people saying, hey, you know, I'm a blockchainer. But I think if you've just got a team of credible people behind you, and I know some early to the table blockchainers, and they almost become sort of moderators de facto, you know, so it kind of works. Yeah.
And of course, then you have to, in many cases, get sponsorship, right? Because that's part of building these events. Yeah. What do you offer people in the world of blockchain? Like what's the draw for them? Because it may be different to classic cars. Like what is...
Sure. Well, I think, you know, and let's face it, the times in the market are hard. I think all marketing budgets have been squeezed across the board, not just blockchain, crypto, Web3. And that because there are so many events that have been going for 3 or 4 years, they have got a stronger voice at the table. And with hindsight, I wish I had launched 3 years ago because I was quite within my rights to do it, and people were there, and you know. But you know, I'm here now, so that's good. I think sponsorship's always tricky. It really is. You've got to find out what the sponsor's needs and requirements are. It goes back to good old classic. You know, what are the brand values of the potential sponsor you're talking to? What is the audience you're offering them? What sort of opportunities can you work on together to enhance their affiliation? You know, and every sponsor's got different requirements.
I don't envy you, right? Because for law firms, I say, oh yeah, well, you know, I've got an opportunity here, and someone just goes, and quite rightly they go, what's the return on investment for us? Absolutely. And you go, well, I can't tell you that we're going to get X amount back. You know, this is a softer sell. Sure.
And I think that's it, because we are still a nascent industry. We are still such a small industry, even though we feel quite big because there's so many global events going on. That the ROI is hard to measure because it is relationship building. And it is the old adage, you know, people do by people first.
Yep.
So it's making those connections, it's building those relationships, it's being seen at the right places, it's offering something of value. And the more connections that you make, the more conversations you have, the stronger your own business proposition.
For sure.
Because you can build your ecosystem with other partners, other supporters. And, you know, then people like me come into the space because I kind of pull you all together and drive that forward. And if people have had a rebrand, then, you know, sponsor an event, it's great. If you're looking to speak to family office and you've got a certain element of family office coming to your event, well, then that's another reason. You know, I'm quite involved in the NFT space. So, you know, NFT art and art auction. So you work with one sponsor, for example, like White Light, who are doing a NFT art auction, and then you kind of call in an ecosystem around that, and then that art sector will grow. And through the next event, it'll be bigger and better.
Yeah, I suppose you have to just keep building that goodwill, and people get drawn to it, right?
Yeah.
You know, it must be very difficult to start an event from scratch because you've got to convince people to go.
Sure.
But I guess next year, word of mouth, it was so good, you've got to come to the next year.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, last summer, I did the event at the Qantas Art Gallery, and that was really just dip my toe in the wall to see how big my community was. And it was great, the support, the people that turned out. And, you know, we went to... and actually, I found there a lot of the community lent in. I did my first launch party at Black's Soho, and they'd just opened. And, you know, they were very kind to say, look, we'll host you here. And now even that relationship with Black's has absolutely flourished, you know. Each time I go in there, you know, everyone knows your name. It's a great community. So I'm glad to have been a part of that at the very beginning.
And in terms of sort of looking around the world at events, who do you think is doing a good job, events? would you like to work?
Consensus USA in Texas.
No hesitation there.
Yeah, absolutely no, I know. And they've changed the dates next year, so I am definitely going to go.
Okay.
That's one I'd really like. I really like the AIBC portfolio. That one in Dubai I'd like to go to.
Just go back. Why Consensus so much? There was no hesitation whatsoever. Like, what is it that they're doing?
There's a number of things. I've been to Austin a few times.
Yeah.
It's the heart of the tech community outside of Silicon Valley. You know, you've got Dell, you've got HP. You have these major, they do Southwest, the Southwest event as well. So it's got an incredibly large tech opportunity community. So that's why it's no hesitation. It's the one that's the most talked about. It gets the main leaders there. That's probably...
So it's about location and it's about who you can put on the bill.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about the line of who you'll speak, because normally that's what draws the audience. But I think as times has moved on, because we're an industry to industry event, it's not just the speakers, it's also who you're going to meet when you're there.
So if you know that friends are going...
Sure, most definitely.
Because there's one that I'm looking to go to in the Caribbean, and it's sort of like, well, I think it will be cool because obviously it's in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, who am I going to meet? What am I going to, you've got to weigh it all up.
Sure.
I guess it's really difficult if you're starting out.
Yes.
To be able to balance all of these things to draw people in.
And sometimes, it's good to go to new ground because you'll meet new faces, new communities, because there's so many people to be building relationships with. I haven't actually personally been to Consensus, which is why it's on my list.
Yeah.
And I've been to a lot of, and I'm heading out to Dubai, GITEX possibly in October. So I'll do the rounds. I'll do a little bit more travelling next year. Do you think it's problematic then when you see conferences? And I know there was one, I think it was in Medellin last year, because Medellin's pretty accessible, but let's just say there was one in El Salvador. Yes,
right?
Yes.
Do you think that would put people off? Or do you think they go, well, actually, if this is a Bitcoin conference in El Salvador, then actually we're going to get some really interesting people?
Yeah, I think my attraction with the US is different. I just happen to love the States.
Right.
But I think people will go where it resonates. So yes, El Salvador. If you're a real hard Bitcoiner, then that's the place to be.
Yeah, fair.
But I think, new locations, I wanted to do an event in Ibiza. Let's hold that dream. That might happen.
Big fan of that.
Yeah.
As we've spoken about.
I'll come knocking on your door when I launch it then.
Yeah. Let's just talk about what connections you've made. You mentioned a few names, but I think it's worth just sort of going over.
Sure.
Who are some of the names that have helped you? What are some of the projects that have helped propel the industry a little bit? Let's take the first question first. Any sort of shout outs to people who have really helped you along the way?
Yeah, I think definitely Gillian Godsill, she interviewed me in the lockdown from Block Leaders. She's a terrific lady, really, quite a maverick in her space as a writer.
What does she do? Just so people who don't know her.
Yeah, she's a writer, a journalist. She runs podcasts. She does a radio show as well. She's been in the blockchain space quite a long time. So she's been a great sort of colleague to work with. James Bowalter, I met him many years ago in Malta, of all places. And I sort of said to him, hey, you're the guy that does a column at Crypto AM, because then it was literally a column. So, so he's been at the table a long time. So I've got a huge amount of respect for him.
Look what that's turned into, you being the summit director, right? So
that's his event. He's grown it. And his fifth year this year. So I'm going to his event this summer. And and just people that I've had the pleasure of working with when I've been a moderator or a conference producer. People like Daniel Steinberg has been fantastically supportive. Johnny Fry, a lot of these people I've sort of had on panels and debates because they're just, they know the area, they know the market, they'll get the crowd going, they'll say something really thought-provoking. Eric van der Kleef, some of these names have just been fantastic to know.
So you're not surprised then when people like that are speaking at conferences and it has a draw, because these people are around for years and you know them.
Exactly.
Let's turn to House of Block itself. I know we spoke about it sort of at the start, but what was the mission when it started and how's that changed?
When it started on my mind map, it was going to be a cocktail party kind of place. And I've done a few of those. Haven't done the podcast yet, but I might go on to Twitter Spaces for that now. Mm-hmm. We've got time to try a few things, really, haven't we? I'd love to do more podcasts with you. I mean, today's really enjoyable.
Yeah.
And taking, getting a fixture, just getting 2 good calendar dates where I think I'll do more side events with House of Block, my community. So when there's an event on in Lisbon, if there's a crowd of us going, I'd really like to host a dinner in that city, or New York for NFT New York, or Consensus in Austin. I'd like to be doing more side events where we're taking our community globally.
Is it about then, say for instance, if you went to Consensus, then you could say, actually, House of Block's hosting a dinner and here's
right.
20 people, 50 people, whatever it is, and we're going to have a little side event.
Absolutely right, yeah.
And then you've got the WhatsApp group. I don't know which came first, you'll tell me, but tell us a little bit about the WhatsApp group.
The WhatsApp group came literally by accident, because I was chatting to a couple of my clients, and I think it was sort of 3 days before Christmas, and someone said, oh, are you doing any drinks and whatever, and want to know about NFT, and I saw you posted something on LinkedIn, and I said, look, 4 people have asked me the same question in as many days. Look, why don't I put you on a WhatsApp group? So I put them on a WhatsApp group. And before I knew it, within a week, we had like 200 people. And then we had Christmas people. We had, I think it was 10 days actually. Then by January, we'd gone up to like 289, and the numbers just kept going up and up and up.
Yeah.
And I've got it at about 400, which I think is a good number.
Yeah.
That's global. So there's people in the US, Canada, Dubai, India.
So what's it for?
It's really, I'm creating that group as a sort of a live event community. And so sometimes I have to say to people, it's not just a billboard, please don't just keep putting posts up. It's about information sharing. So there's been a good article, like today, there was an article in the FT about a US venture capital firm coming to the UK to support blockchain and crypto startups. Now that's newsworthy. So it's that sort of information exchange.
Keeping people up to date.
Yes,
number one.
Up to date, sharing articles, throwing in your opinion. Why not? We all want to share that. And hearing about other events that are taking place. And
because I get invited to Telegram groups a lot, and it's painful.
Yes.
And you just get bombarded with information. All of a sudden, someone's giving you a discount code to blockchain influencers whole conference in Dubai, and you're like, why am I here?
Yeah.
How have you managed to avoid that, to actually get a decent conversation going each time?
I think it is the people that are in the group,
Yeah.
And it's really down to them and how they manage it as well. It almost manages itself. I remember the first time when I set it up and I was going on holiday, and I said to Sunil Chauhan, who actually designed my logo at Evolve, I said, Sunil, can you be my moderator? And then I said, Jill, can you be my moderator? Because I thought, without me, it was going to sort of crash and burn. Of course it doesn't.
Yeah.
It's a super bunch of intelligent people in that group. I'm very proud to have them in that group that sort of self-regulate it. So it's great.
I think the difference as well is you get out and about, people can put a name to a face, right? So when I get invited to WhatsApp groups or Telegram groups, it's just however many number of people, you have no idea who's in there.
Yeah, and I don't like that. People do that to me.
It drives me crazy.
Suddenly I'm in a group and there's like 3,000 people. I'm like, whoa, hang on a minute. And I just leave.
Leave and block.
Yeah.
You don't want to be re-invited back in, right?
Really, I just launched recently this year a Women That Rock Blockchain group. And there's so many people that are saying to me, oh, make it like this, make it like that. And I've just kept it at a limit of 50 at the moment, because it's really important for those 50 women to get to know each other. Coincidentally, most are from the legal profession and accountancy profession.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, great. We need you. We all need regulating. So it's great that they're there, because they can build that relationship. And I think as each quarter goes, I'll increase the size of it with a view to potentially doing a women event one day.
Because there are quite a few women in blockchain style groups, right? And there are really, really good ones.
Yeah.
How is yours different? Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's just...
I don't know if it is. I think with all these groups, there are so many. It's all about the chemistry in that group, and people can choose to stay or leave. And I think that's what's really lovely. And yes, there's loads of these groups, and some people join them for FOMO. I don't have that.
Yeah.
I'll do it if there's value or if I like the people that are in that group. And I want to have further engagement or connection with them. So I just think it's that. And at one stage, I'm sure in the future, we'll all kind of come together or intersect a little bit more.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's going to be no collaboration.
I would love to do a women in digital assets event conference. So I'm talking to a few people about that in partnerships. That would be exciting for Q3. So
how do you want people to engage with House of Block? Not only the event, but also the WhatsApp group. And what's the long-term vision for it all?
I'd like more group feedback. I think that's always hard, and I think the thing is, because people are in so many groups, again, it's how they perceive it. It's just another channel, right? Another radio frequency. Tune in.
Yeah.
I get that. So I think what you do with all these groups is you sort of build a traction and you build a core, and then you sort of take that core ethos forward. And actually, the community will come to me and tell me what they want. And it's a bit like Hurlingham, you know. People said, look, don't do yet another conference. So, okay, light afternoon talks as an icebreaker, because, you know, we have all got so much to say, and, you know, there's so much going on with the SEC in the USA and AI and regulation. Yeah. So, you know, when we meet for a drink, we all want to talk about those kind of things. So they will be on the agenda, but then after that, it will be very much, you know, let's get to know each other a bit more.
Yeah, it may well be that keeping it small and letting it grow organically is probably the best way forward, because then you get all the right people.
Exactly. And I'd like to be the radio station that sticks around, you know, when I was talking about different frequency, and I'd like it because it is small and intimate, and you know.
Do you have to ask for feedback, or do people give it to you?
I've done a couple of polls in the group, which would be great.
What were some of the polls?
Yeah, I just sort of said, you know, what do you want to do? Summer clubs, you know, supper clubs, meetups, and you get different people saying different things. Do
people normally respond, or people?
They do. They respond, and I get a lot of DMs, which is always good. I'm happy with those.
People want to say stuff. They just want to say it openly.
I don't mind. I think that's important, to speak however you want to speak.
Yeah.
Speak and be heard.
And how do you get people to not say offensive or silly things? Because sometimes people do say silly things, and you have to just sort of go, actually, that's not appropriate.
Yeah, sometimes you have to do that. It's rare. I haven't done that much.
I haven't seen it really at all.
No, and I think that just shows the quality of the audience.
There you go. And in terms of the long-term vision, it's about longevity, obviously.
Sure.
But I guess it's going to be more events development.
Yeah, event development, and really, you know, doing things that are slightly different. So with Hurlingham, I sort of ripped up the conference rule book and said, you know, no, I won't do back-to-back panels.
Yeah.
Because you all know each other, and we all talk so much anyway. What you really want to do is relax.
Yeah.
Get away from the pressure of your desk and all the work that's going on, and endless emails and WhatsApp chats, and just have some downtime. But you're still networking, so there's value there.
Absolutely right. Well, Korby, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Matt. I've really enjoyed talking to you this afternoon.
This podcast does not contain any financial or legal advice, and you should not seek to rely on it as such. Opinions are the individual's own. This podcast was produced and edited by Joe Hawkins, and music by Luke Carey. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.